Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Members of the media, to ask a question at the end of the press conference, please raise your virtual hand and wait to be called upon. Once called, you will need to unmute yourself to speak. Also, please include the name of your organization in your title on Zoom. This is a requirement to ask a question. If you are unable to change your title, please type the name of your outlet in the chat and we will add it to your title for you. We will begin the press conference shortly. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. It is National Sunshine Week, a time to reflect upon the need for transparency in our democracy and the laws that require us to shine a light on the operations of our government and elected officials are critical. They ensure we know not just what our leaders say they are doing, but what they are actually doing. Transparency requirements also reveal potential conflicts of interest that can help guide us in holding our lawmakers accountable. In the past 2 years, my administration has carried out the completely transparent launch of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, which included publishing drafts of the application and selection protocols in advance for public review, live streaming every aspect of the selection, and publishing the complete applications of all 200 finalists. Additionally, the Bureau of Elections made publicly available a list of 177,000 voter registrations 1 month before they were slated to be canceled. This was to ensure that voters had time to notify their local clerks if they were listed in error. And as I announced earlier this month, the Bureau also worked with election clerks on both sides of the aisle and across the state to carry out more election audits than ever before in state history. This included the audit of Antrim County's election, which was live streamed for the public to watch, and launching Michigan's first ever statewide election audits, which were also live streamed by the Bureau and local clerks. This year, we will also take another step to advance transparency when we launch a new campaign finance tracking system on our website, which is being designed to significantly increase ease of use for the public. For many years, including these last 2 as Secretary of State, I've also advocated for state lawmakers to draft and pass laws that would bring about true transparency in Michigan government. It's disgraceful that our state ranks 50th in the nation in government transparency. That's why 2 years ago, shortly after taking office, I called on the legislature to pass a package of measures that would move Michigan from worst to first in government transparency. The legislature has failed to do so, but seems to be more interested in taking action now. So I'm here today to advocate again for my worst to first legislative agenda. It calls for legislation to extend the Freedom of Information Act to the governor and the legislature and require personal financial disclosures from all state elected officials. Additionally, to shine light on the dark money in our political system, the state should require all PACs, super PACs, and committees to report all of their expenses, require reporting by indirect political campaigns, and tighten requirements to ensure secret and foreign money does not influence our elections. Finally, to stop public corruption, our laws should require a 2-year period between state legislators leaving office and working as a lobbyist, and ban companies and their owners from making political contributions if they receive state grants. Those are just some of the measures in my From Worst to First agenda, which will be included in its entirety in our press release and on our website. All of the measures are national best practices that voters on both sides of the aisle want, and they provide an excellent opportunity for lawmakers to affirm public faith in our democracy, as so many have claimed they want to do. For these reasons, I'm hopeful that the state legislature does advance these proposals this year and that they do so in earnest. And indeed, some strong bills have already been introduced that include these proposals. For example, Representative David LeGrand has drafted legislation that would require financial disclosure from elected officials and a 2-year waiting period before they lobby after leaving office. Another, now introduced in both the House and Senate, would extend the Freedom of Information Act to the governor and the state legislature. Unfortunately, while the initial draft shows promise, it contains several loopholes and exemptions that must be amended to ensure true transparency. Among the issues are that it needlessly creates a special and watered-down version of FOIA for the legislature. Yet my department and all state departments already operate within FOIA, and the legislature does the public a disservice if it gives itself special treatment. And even if lawmakers are concerned courts could not provide FOIA enforcement, which is a decision our courts could certainly determine on a case-by-case basis if necessary, the authority to enforce FOIA must be placed with a truly independent body, not one that the legislature oversees and can control, as is proposed in their current legislation. Indeed, if such a bill were to become law without fixing these and other loopholes, it would allow our legislature to continue to operate in the shadows and deny Michigan citizens the transparency they truly deserve. So for this reason, I'm hopeful that in the weeks ahead, we can see the legislature and work with the legislature to help see this bill and many of the other proposals come into law. I will, of course, continue to work with them to do so. And now, before I close, I also want to mention that tomorrow morning, our department begins a new era, as we will have our entire database of driver and vehicle records finally in one modern system. This has been a goal for decades, and I congratulate the many employees for our state who've worked to make it a reality and struggled with our existing system in the meanwhile. For customers, this means that they will be able to do more of their business with us online and at more than 140 new self-service stations all across the state. This includes services like renewing their driver's licenses and state IDs when no new photo is required, replacing a lost license, and looking up their own driving record. We're thrilled to offer these and many more conveniences to our customers as we continue our service-driven mission to dramatically improve department operations. So with that said, I'll close now for questions, and thank you all for being here today.
Tim Skubik, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Madam Secretary, what is your department's position on severance payments for people leaving your employ?
On severance payments, well, my office has not used NDAs like that since I was sworn into office. And what's become clear, Tim, over the past month is that multiple other bodies on both sides of the aisle have used them. And I was glad to see the governor issue a directive clarifying how they can and can't be used in the future.
Will you be doing that? If somebody wants to leave, will you give them money to leave?
Again, we have not done that. We have not needed to do that. And I'm proud that we've built a good team here where that hasn't been an issue. And certainly, as private employment discussions arise in the future, we hope to solve them in a way that furthers these goals of transparency and, of course, will comply with the governor's directive.
Walt Sorg, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Walt. You are muted if you're talking.
Jonathan Osting, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Secretary Benson. Thanks for doing this. You mentioned some of the loopholes that you see in the FOIA LoRa package. What specifically, are you worried? What sort of information are you worried would be, able to remain secret under a package like that?
Well, under the current legislation, there are several concerns, one of which I've mentioned with regards to judicial review and enforcement, which is going to be important in ensuring that FOIA is meaningfully accessible to all of our residents. In addition to that, there are waiting periods that don't also have retention requirements that could lead to several documents not being available truly to the public when they should be, and other loopholes that enable and perhaps could enable private or communications that otherwise should be disclosed to be undisclosed. And we're hoping that the legislature will close some of those loopholes, caucus communications, for example, in a way that would not enable the workaround that could, again, run counter to the true transparency of and the goals of FOIA. What we're also concerned at is just also equality, making sure that we're all under the same requirements and under the same transparency goals for our public. And so while we're having a conversation of extending FOIA to the governor, making sure the legislature is similarly held to the same standard that this new law and provision would create is very important overall.
Thanks.
Walt Sorg, I believe you're back on. If you could unmute yourself and ask your question.
Still can't hear you, Walt.
All right, folks. Well, those are all the questions we have today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Sunshine Week.
Hey, I have one more if you're still there. When is the new campaign finance reporting tool going to be unveiled that you mentioned?
Later this year. It's something we've been working on for a number of months now, and we'll have it up. My hope is in the first half of this year.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes. Hi, Walt.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing.
Get the last question. Go for it.
Technology bites me in the butt again. I wanted to ask about the initiative petitions that have been before the elections division now for several months now. What is the status of getting those signatures to the Board of Canvassers?
Well, that's a question for them. I've ensured that the process remains independent and free from any type of political pressures, which I think is important. As you know, the Bureau of Elections, with a short staff of just a few dozen individuals, has just finished about a week ago or so of overseeing over 250 election audits. And of course, before that was involved with managing and supporting the administration of a historic presidential election where more citizens voted than ever before in the midst of a pandemic. So they've been a little busy, and I'm grateful for all of the overtime and the work that they have devoted to the state. And the review of petitions is included in that. And I have full confidence that they will continue treating all petitions just as they have any other, and review and meet their requirements under the law well ahead of the time in which next year where the review would have to be completed.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a good afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.